Ladies and gentlemen, mesdames and messieurs, welcome to Then and Now, the show we do every week with George Jatras, author of I Try to Warn You, available on Amazon and all your fine booksellers, also available on Kindle. Descriptions and links in the description below. Jim, we are here to talk about the recent updates with the Ukraine-Russia war with Trump, Comrade Trump, coming out and telling Putin, 50 days or else.
Or else.
Get peace settled in 50 days or else bad things. Tariffs, secondary tariffs. Secondary tariffs on all Trump's, exports of oil and energy to the BRICS and developing nations such as China and India. This is more of a Lindsey Graham plan that seems to be coming to fruition, which we commented on when Lindsey first talked about this and saying, well, that's just stupid. And apparently, stupid works in Washington. When all else fails, just do the dumb thing. And that's what Trump's been doing, as well as also saying that he's going to be arming Ukraine with long-range missiles that allegedly can strike into the heart of Moscow and St. Petersburg, which is also stupid. And infactual, but sure, hey, while we're piling up dumb things, why not? I think at this point we can, even the diehard Trumpers will have to admit that at least on this point, if not others, Trump is completely out to lunch, and his international policy with Russia has essentially failed. Thoughts?
Meine Damen und Herren, Damen und Господа, señoras y señores. I don't even know where to start, Jason. I am quite taken by your either north of the what parallel is that with the Canadian border? I forget. North of the border or down under. Five Eyes wisdom that when all else fails in Washington, do the dumb thing. I think you've got our number. It's unbelievable. I mean, I don't know if he mentioned it or not. Also, that apparently that leaked audio of his boasting that he told Putin over the phone that if you go into Ukraine, this, I guess, during his first term, we're going to bomb Moscow. And he's telling Xi Jinping we're going to bomb Beijing. Well, I don't know if he believed me. Maybe 10% believe me. But 5%'s enough. I mean, I'll tell you, Jason, I think there's something wrong with this guy. I mean, I think there's something wrong, with the way his brain works.
Well, okay. Let's try to pull this. Let's try to pull this out a little bit, and look at it from both directions. I was trying to be as generous as possible to Trump early days when he first came in, and he was making a lot of statements like he's going to end this war in the first 60 days and all that rest of it stuff. And the leniency I gave Trump is like, I don't think he's got the right information. I think people might be in his ear giving him the wrong intel, giving him like the beefed up Biden Pentagon narrative that, oh no, plucky Ukraine's going to win this thing. All they need is just more armaments, more money, more this, more that, and they're going to somehow pull this out, right? They're the tenacious Ukrainians, Slavic Ukrainians are going to do it. And then so he gets in, and then we talked about this on the show where he did an about face. I think when he finally did get maybe some better intel, or the real deal intel about what was going on the ground, he seemed to shift where it was like all of a sudden, oh, okay. Shoot, I don't have the leverage we thought we did, and we better start negotiating and trying to get this figured out in a different direction. And that seemed to be working until he put Kellogg in charge of at least some of the part of the plans, and Kellogg was moved off and put to the Europeans, and it was Witkoff who was taking the lead.
And Witkoff came in as the whiz kid who was going to fix everything.
Right,
and then Kellogg is back in the scheme of things, and then Marco Rubio is the one who's taken over everything in the National Security Council. I mean, it just seems like Eddie, you're right. I mean, Eddie, I'm sorry, keep going again.
Well, it's just so this mess of things, right? And even with Witkoff, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying, you know what, hey, maybe a fresh face, someone who's outside of the thing, given the right information, maybe with the right people around him, could at least try to broker some sort of peace deal or start something rolling that we shouldn't at least be too black-pilled about. Like, okay, this is different. This is certainly different than we saw during the Biden administration. Maybe there's some hope here.
Right.
And quickly we saw those hopes being dashed because it was always about ceasefire, which again we've talked about many times on the show, which was dumb.
Right.
It's you can't demand Russia have a ceasefire when they're already in an advantage position.
Well, it's not necessarily dumb because it fits into what Washington's priorities are. Trump aside, it fits into Washington's priorities to try to put a losing effort on hold and not suffer a complete disaster while we shift to the Middle East, shift to China, and all that other kind of stuff. You know, is it dumb to expect the Russians to maybe fall for it? Based on past experience, no. I don't think it's dumb at all to try to, you know, if the Russians see that, you know, carrot out on the end of the stick that says, well, maybe we can have a deal with the United States. Maybe we can solve this more diplomatically. Would they fall into that trap again? A lot of people say, no way they'll ever do it. Based on past experience, I think at least from Washington's point of view, it's at least worth a try, you know, to say, well, maybe they'll be dumb enough to buy it again.
Okay, you know what? Fair enough. But then, of course, you have the problem of the other players in the room, which is Europe, mostly UK, Germany, and France, who've done everything in their power to basically Scooby or make every single deal look dangerous or dubious, anyways. By UK's making different proclamations, and of course France, Macron saying he's going to be the new Napoleon, and who knows what how Merz is doing, and just out there eating German crayons, saying they're going to rearm Germany. With how I don't know how they.
Wait.
It's like
wait a minute, I missed something here. Macron's going to be the new Napoleon.
I think he likes the hat. I think he just really wanted to wear the hat.
Oh well. Does that mean his husband will be the new Josephine?
Yeah, I was going to say, or maybe she likes horses. Naughty, Jim. Naughty.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, you know, I don't think Napoleon swung that way, but that's a whole nother story.
You don't know. The unofficial biography, maybe. I think it's, you know what, I said this before, but I think the Jay Dyer is rubbing off on Jim here. He's got the shirt now. We're gonna get some Jim Jatras vaporwave going.
I need a hat. Wait a minute. Let me get a hat. I'll be right back.
And shades. Get some shades.
We got a couple possibilities here.
Uh-oh.
We can do the classic Mao look.
Oh, very nice.
What do you think of that? Huh? Okay, there's that. There's this one. Oh, I don't even dare put this one on.
Turkey.
Turkey. Or this one maybe. The Pinkerton Detective Company.
Oh, I think it's got to be Pinkerton. You got to go with the Pinkerton.
Yeah.
I
got to go with the Pinkerton. And let's see. I got one more here. I can try. This is a political party from Suriname. What is this one? This is from. You can read. You can read Russian, right?
A bit.
I'm not even sure what this one says. Where I got it.
No, I can't read that.
Urala, something about Ural.
Urals.
Yeah. Oh well.
It's probably a farming. Is this merch you got from your lobbying days?
Yeah, basically. What's this one? This one is a political party from Suriname.
Well, I think
every day.
Let me know, chat. We can vote on it in the chat. I definitely.
I don't think it's really me. I don't really do the hat. I don't do the hat thing.
No, all right.
No.
We'll plan ahead. We'll get you some good shades. We'll get you some good Jay Dyer shades for next time. So of course now we have Germany saying they're going to remilitarize. We don't know how because they've deindustrialized themselves and also have no energy.
Yeah.
Here's a.
Other than that, they're doing great.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic. Not to mention, of course, I've been tracking the bond markets in Europe and abroad. Japan is now fully clicked over into crisis mode. They've had to readjust their entire bond market yields. It's skyrocketed up almost 50 basis points now. What that's going to do for the adjustment periods, and Germany's following suit as well. Their bond yields are soaring as well. So the downstream effect of this, in terms of their insurance and retirement packages and all these other things, is going to be immense. We're also seeing massive corrections in the UK markets. August seems to be a red letter month. We're going to see what happens all there, but all these things are converging, and very quickly, to the point where we have to ask the big giant question: how does Trump think he's going to get any of this done in any shape or form? And of course, Russia is now making massive gains on the battlefield. Pokrovsk is in the cauldron and being under attack. The north is being prepared, presumably, for an attack on Kiev. We have major movements in the south. It looks like a lot of speculation is that Ukraine will be forced out of Donbass by the fall, which will be massive. Basically cutting off any other forces they have east of the Donbass, and being easy pickings for Russia to attack. And even with and even with these now promised new missiles and all the rest of it, well, they can promise all the missiles they want, but they don't have enough batteries because they don't have enough launching systems to launch these missiles. So, now Russia is just attacking them ceaselessly with massive drones, because they have now a secondary drone facility being opened up in Siberia, which is going to be able to supply something like, I don't know, speculate wildly about numbers, but anywhere between 100 drones a day can be built and then shipped over to the war. So, any thoughts on this, all, Jim? It's a lot, but I don't see how any threats are going to be working here.
Well, first off, starting with the financial side, which you understand a lot better than I do, maybe Trump thinks that somehow, by his tariffs, and they're going to yield more revenue coming to the Treasury, or strong-arm countries into unfavorable trade deals like our big, beautiful New Deal with Indonesia or somebody, that he can get enough cash in the bank to somehow weather whatever kind of financial crisis we're going through. I don't know how he expects to get out of that. But you're right, on the military side, we just don't have the material to send them. The Ukrainians don't have the trained manpower to use them. I guess we could send over American or European trained personnel to operate the systems, which probably we already are. I mean, I don't think most of these systems are being actually manned by Ukrainians. And, at some point, the number of NATO personnel being killed in this war start becoming more apparent than it is right now. So, I don't know how all that adds up. As I'm not going to go into the speculation again about how the Russians intend to, pursue this war, whether they're going to pursue a military victory or whether they're still holding out for diplomacy. I mean, for crying out loud, I think that the big question is, okay, he's once again has painted himself into a corner. 50 days from now, he's got to do something. I think it's likely that the Graham-Blumenthal bill from sanctions from hell will pass sometime during that 50 days. It'll have liberal presidential waiver authority, so it'll basically be Trump's discretion to apply whatever sanctions, frankly, whatever sanctions he wants to anybody in the world for any reason. They're going to give him a complete carte blanche, and that's going to put him in a box too, because either then he uses the authority he has, or he doesn't use the authority. In either case, the buck stops at his desk, and he doesn't really have an excuse. So I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, if we get to 50 days and there's not a ceasefire, and I don't think there's going to be a ceasefire, does he start slinging sanctions around all the world and make everything even worse, or does he find some excuse and that it's taco? Trump always chickens out, and he backs down. He's put himself in a no-win situation.
Okay, let's deal with two things. So the threat now with long range missiles, there's major speculation about what missiles are being sent. Initially, Trump was saying there's going to be Patriot missiles being sent, but there's probably not enough of those. So now the speculation is either between these new JASSM missiles or Tomahawks.
Right.
Both of them supposedly could theoretically hit Moscow. Some people said St. Petersburg, which is just stupid. The other big target of interest, though, is 600 miles east of Moscow is Russia's main drone factory. That's been pumping out the majority of the drones so far, and this is what Russia's been using on a nightly basis and has been extremely effective. I think that's kind of the undisclosed target. However, even to hit that target, the Ukrainians would have to basically put those batteries right up on the front lines. Whatever front line you want to draw now, which is debatable. But if they get forced out of Donbass, they just won't have the capabilities of reaching Moscow, let alone anything east of Moscow. So there's that consideration. I think that's just now of course, Trump is saying, well, we'll sell these missiles and defense systems to Europe, and Europe will arm Ukraine, which, now you're just creating a middleman situation, which is silly.
Since Europe is so awash with money right now, there's no reason they can't afford this stuff, right?
Yeah, the economic powerhouse that is Europe at the moment. The other interesting thing with the tariffs, the tariff threat, I agree with you. It's that it's fine to give the president these associated grand executive powers. This is something that Curtis Yarvin and many others of the DR NRX kind of field has talked about. The problem is the will to do it, because if he does enact these kind of tariffs, now he's declaring economic war on 2/3 of the planet. Like,
sure,
because the other crazy thing is, the other crazy thing is, I don't know if you've seen this recently. Israel's now launching strikes into Damascus.
Yeah,
I don't understand that at all, because if Damascus or Turkey is supposed to be now your secondary energy hub, that's going to be feeding cheap energy from that region up into Europe to basically replace the Russian oil and RNG, because there's not enough American stuff to do it. So maybe it can come through Syria, but you're making Syria a new war zone. So I don't see where that plays into the whole thing. Basically, Europe's screwed. If the intent, and this is the only thing that makes sense to me, if the intent is to basically collapse Europe, well, they're doing a heck of a job. That seems to be successful.
Isn't that what Tom Luongo's been saying?
Well, it's the only. It's either that or everyone's lost their goddamn mind, or never had a mind to begin with.
But what do you gain? What do you gain from that, though? I mean, in terms of Trump's whatever possible agenda he might have, how does that make any sense? That collapsing Europe economically benefits the United States, where they're going to move all their industry to the United States, I guess is the thinking. But I just don't see that happening. I don't look. I think there's a lot less strategy here than meets the eye. I think it's basically just keep pursuing dominance, crush anybody who opposes us. Look, we're obvious. You talk about this new front in Syria. There's also a new front in the Caucasus with Azerbaijan, with the Quisling government in Armenia, Pashinyan basically siding with Turkey and Azerbaijan and picking a fight with the Russians and also with the Iranians. So that's another front, and of course the Israelis are also deeply dug in Azerbaijan. As far as Turkey and Israel go, you're right. Of course, Erdogan is he's a slimy, slippery devil. He talks a big fight against Israel about Gaza, blah blah blah. But he's really Israel's silent partner. He was Israel's silent partner with the United States in Qatar in collapsing Syria. But now the Israelis and the Turks have what amounts to a direct border with each other in terms of their sphere of influences. I mean, there's a reason in classic diplomacy that powers would seek to have like a buffer state between them, so they would not have a direct border, like Thailand was between French Indochina and British India, or the Wakhan corridor in Afghanistan between the Russian and British empires. That buffer state doesn't exist anymore between the Israeli sphere in Syria and the Turkish sphere in Syria. And there's enough combustible material lying around with all the different communities, all the different crazy militias that make up the new Syrian army, which are just different flavors of Al Qaeda. And I don't know that even the best thought out strategy on either Turkey's or Israel's part can avoid a clash. And I think we're sort of seeing them moving in that direction. And I don't know that they'll be able to avoid it. Now, what happens from there, I don't know.
Well, it also puts Greece into perspective as well, right? Or it puts Greece into a big giant question mark, because obviously Turkey's got their eyes on Cyprus and other parts of Greece, and now we're getting reports that a lot of big money Israelis are buying up properties in Greece, like as aggressively as they can. So that puts them into a collision course as well, because it also makes the question, why Greece? Like, I understand Turkey's interest and involvement is historical, but for the Israelis, why Greece? Other than it's just this, again, this extending circle of influence in the great game that I guess Israel's looking to do that greater Israel project of extending, Israel all the way up to Ukraine, and Greece just happens to be in the way.
I don't know how much of that is the Israeli government or a lot of Israelis who are getting out of Dodge while they can, whereas that they're going there as the nearest safe refuge in a country that's friendly to them, especially since, given the estrangement that's occurred, at least officially, between Ankara and Tel Aviv, or Jerusalem, take your pick, during the last few years, Israel and Cyprus and Greece have basically been on an axis of both energy development and security cooperation. You could call it the blue and white alliance between the cross and the Star of David. I mean, that's essentially what's going on. And with Cyprus being the junior partner, and this also relates obviously very big to exploitation of energy resources in the Eastern Mediterranean. If you accept the Greek and Cypriot and Israeli economic zones, basically Turkey is frozen out of most of the Mediterranean energy and Aegean energy. Greece loses some of those islands. That changes that picture quite a bit. And then suddenly Turkey becomes much more robust in its economic prospects in the Mediterranean. So, there's a lot of that going on as well. Keep in mind, too, that the defenses of the Greek islands have largely been stripped down to send equipment to Ukraine. I mean, this has been happening over the last few years. So that the danger they face from their NATO ally Turkey is actually a very real one, and their ability to defend themselves is quite questionable.
Yeah. There's also more going on in Europe now with the mass immigration issues coming to a head. We're seeing mass violence breaking out on the streets of Spain. That's being unreported. But we're seeing large groups of Muslim men taking to the streets of Spain, blocking up streets, and now a lot of Spanish citizens are now acting out and taking matters in their own hands. Of course, Spain and Islam have a long, storied history, and that seems to be spilling out. We're starting to see violence in the streets of the UK, Ireland, and have you seen this one, Jim? I'm going to share this for a second. We got stuff coming out of Poland, plucky little Poland.
Oh, yes, I saw. You talking about the guys on the border with Germany?
Yeah, Poland's mobilized tanks to the border of Germany.
Yeah.
And Hungary.
Yeah.
Basically saying that they will refuse entry of any and all immigrants or migrants coming in from Africa and the Middle East. Here's what the new leader of Poland had to say about it.
Poland and Polish democracy. The lowest unemployment in European Union is COVID in European Union is Poland. One of the lowest deaths in European Union is Poland. So don't give us this prophecy about the need of educated immigration, as we heard yesterday. We don't need your doctors. We don't need your engineers. Take them all, and pay for them. We don't need them. You know why? Because there's a zero terrorist attacks in Poland. Why? Because there's no illegal migrants in Poland. So don't give me this look. Don't give me this argument about the populism. Because this is a fact. This is your data from Eurostat. So we don't need your engineers. We don't need your doctors. Take them. Do not teach us. Do not teach us about democracy, because we know what the democracy is. So learn from Poland. Be like Poland. Thank you very much.
Learn from Poland. Be like Poland. Be like the Polacks. My goodness, I never thought I'd live long enough to see.
Poleaxe. That's a big long weapon with an axe on the end of it, right?
Yes, that they used to hit themselves in the face repeatedly, because that seems to be the Polish way. But hey,
it's a very inspiring speech.
Well, and many people are saying in the mainstream media that Poland's the new Germany. I'm like, oh damn, Poland. We're careful now, because we saw what happened to Germany after they said Germany's the new Germany, and then this whole thing. So this is boiling up, of course, in Europe as well. Financial stuff aside, you have now open rebellion within the EU about immigration and migration policies. Big giant news report now is that the UK smuggled in a few thousands, I don't know the exact number, of Afghanis, people who are loyal to the Western governments, who are working with Western governments anyways, with the US or the Britain, got smuggled out to the tune of £7 billion. And then this just got leaked. And apparently the data leak about these Afghans, even the Taliban have this data leak. So they know who these people are. And quite possibly we might see even more further terrorist violence within the UK borders. I mean, crisis upon crisis upon crisis, and there seems to be no end in sight. Before we get to, I'd like to get your thoughts about all this stretching back into your time in working with the government. But before we do, we have two announcements. One, thank you, everyone. And I see people in the chat, people watching and liking. Please like, subscribe, and share the stream. Let the people know where we're at. I have recovered more or less fully from my death flu. And hopefully all the audio and all the rest of the issues have been sorted out. So I appreciate each and every one of you.
What's that?
You can't hear me?
No, somebody says can't hear it at all on the chat.
Oh, maybe the clip I was sharing. I don't know. If you're watching this on
very low volume,
yeah, there's nothing else I can do about that. I had it turned up all the way on YouTube, on Twitter. Basically, the 411 it was written out about on the screen, is Poland basically saying to the EU, that was
all we needed.
We don't want your immigrants. We got this under control. Poland's doing really well because we don't have any terrorist attack, because we don't have any migrants or illegal immigrants coming into the country. So, and that's why also Poland's putting tanks on the border of Germany. So, we have so thanks everyone who's liking, sharing the stream. If you want to donate to the show, there's many ways of doing that. Of course, send us money over to Streamlabs. Link is pinned in the chat and in the description. I got some birthdays and all the rest to pay for, and also bills. The last 2 weeks of the month, which is causing us to do a little bit of catch up, not on the fries, but on the show and all the algorithms and all the rest of it. So I do appreciate to each and every one of you who help out in any which way you can. And of course, we have another announcement. The third annual Ludwell Orthodox Fellowship Conference is coming up, which you are going to be taking part in, Jim. Hang on, let me just put this on the screen.
Correct.
No volume required for this one, so don't worry. It's being hosted in Stafford, Virginia, On Saturday, September 6th, 2005, Jay Dyer is going to be there. Dissident Mama, Jim Jatras. What else can you tell us about? I think Buck Johnson's supposed to be there.
Justin, Buck Johnson, Justin Marler, the Youth of the Apocalypse. It should be a pretty good turnout, and we're looking forward to it. I mean, I don't know how many people are familiar with Ludwell or the Ludwell Fellowship. Ludwell was the first known Orthodox Christian in the British colonies back in the 18th century in Virginia. He was native Virginian. His father was born in Virginia as well, so his roots go very deep into this, really the cradle of America and certainly of the southern region. And so this is an examination of how Orthodoxy is really becoming nativized here in America, Virginia, the South, and how it is, spreading quite successfully, and how we can do this even more successfully. So it should be a pretty good talk. This is kind of like ground zero for American history. Obviously the Revolution, which, as you know, was our first civil war here, because there were almost as many loyalists fighting for the crown as there were patriots fighting against the crown. And of course, then the second Civil War, the late unpleasantness from 1861 to 65. And, this is some of the bloodiest ground in America around here with, Spotsylvania and Fredericksburg and Wilderness and Chancellorsville and so forth. A very, very historic area that I'm sure a lot of the people coming for the conference will want to explore. So we're looking forward to this. It's, I think kind of a microcosm in a way of what's happening with Orthodoxy here in America.
Yeah, I would love to be there, but maybe next year. Maybe we'll plan for next year. So you can get your tickets there. Go check out. Go look up the Ludwell Orthodox Conference, and you can buy some tickets.
Southern Orthodox. SouthernOrthodox.org is the
There
website. SouthernOrthodox.org.
So head on over and get yourself some tickets and be part of the conference. You don't have to be Orthodox to do it, but of course it helps. And go check out the fine speakers there.
Okay, we can take care of that at the conference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you go in a Baptist, come out of Orthodox. So, what's your what?
I'll go better.
Took me into a newt. Do you think do you think Orthodoxy has a better chance of spreading in, let's say, the South than the North? I think that's an interesting question, because in the South, I mean, look, I don't. I'm a neophyte when it comes to a lot of these things, especially when in the Protestant world. But my understanding is in the South, it's basically dominated by Baptists and sort of evangelical schools of Protestantism and all the rest of it. Do you think there's a general pipeline, like people are getting to the point where none of those churches are working out for them anymore, and they're looking for the truth that Orthodoxy can provide, or?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there are a few things going on. One is, as you know, all over the Western world, including the United States, you have the rise of the nuns, Nones, people who affiliate with no religion. And then an awful lot of those people, at some point in their life, they go through the dark night of the soul, and they say, wait a minute, it's got to be something real out there. And obviously, they're not going to go to your, typical, rainbow flag or whatever flag waving Protestant church or even Roman Catholic church. And I think a lot of them are sick of these, these, let's find a nice way to say it. Some of these characters you see in pulpits in evangelical churches, they're basically just peddling what their own personal theology is. And a lot of it's dispensationalism or health and wealth gospel or name it and claim it gospel or blab it and grab it gospel, whatever they call it. And, or happy clappy, Jesus is my boyfriend kind of stuff. Nobody needs that either. And so I do think we're seeing that, but I think there is something, as we pointed out in the first two conferences, and many people like, Don Livingston and Clark Carlton have, written about this and spoken to the previous conferences. There is something about Southern culture that tends to be a little more, conservative, for want of a better word, not necessarily politically conservative, but socially conservative. Just the sense that of being grounded in tradition, in the earth, in the community, and not, just solely concerned about, Puritan Yankee money grubbing and annoying my neighbor, so there is something to that, I think. So I think, like with each person, each region of the country, each kind of community and their values, you have to understand them and love them to really reach out to them with the gospel as we understand it in its fullness in Orthodoxy. And I think, yeah, we are seeing the fruits of that. I mean, I teach an online catechetical class for a couple of different parishes, and most of the people we have coming are people who are grown up as various kinds of Protestant. Although, frankly, we're getting more and more Roman Catholics these days too. So it's really a mixed bag.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we brought up when we had Jay Dyer on, but I feel like I keep needing to repeat it for people. The time is now, really. I think there's a lot of people who are homeless, spiritually homeless, religiously homeless, or increasingly so. And I know that some people will criticize Jay's tactics or Andrew Wilson's tactics and all that stuff. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to adopt the same thing, but for quite a few people, debates are what brings them there. The theological side or the academic side does have a pull on people. I know quite a few people. Matt Erickson, there's a long list of people who were brought into Orthodoxy from those kinds of inquiries. Not everyone gets it from I got a voice of God. Other people get it through experience or through connections, or through family connections or histories. But not everyone has that. So there's a good number of cohort of people who are brought by podcasts and shows and debates and the academic spheres and theological kind of questioning. And so those people can't be ignored. And I certainly think that guys like Jay Dyer and Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob are having an effect. I think they're bringing more people to the church than many of their critics are. So there's always that to consider.
Yeah. And look, and there are critics, and I must say most of them tend to be boomers. So you could always discount a lot of what they say, but a lot of them have this kind of oh so holy, oh no, this is just so undignified. You should just be sitting at the feet of learned elders, learning great drafts of spiritual wisdom from the Philokalia or something. Well, how do you even know there's a church to go to where the great drafts of spiritual wisdom is, unless you hear about it somewhere in the, so to speak, the public square? And the public square is online nowadays, and especially with the younger guys, it's a bit rough and tumble. It's they're okay, fine. I will admit they are not as gentlemanly in many respects as those of us who are a little bit older were raised to be. That's just the way it is. That's the lay of the land. And so you just have to accept it that the way it is. And it's I think in a way kind of speaking a new language, if you will, a new manifestation of Pentecost as speaking in tongues. Unto the bros I became as a bro that I might win the bros. And so I think we have to have a bigger perspective on this than a lot of people are inclined to have sometimes.
Jim, your video is clipping. I don't know if you can maybe press refresh and just see if that'll sort that out. But your audio is coming in. Yeah, your audio is coming in fine, so should be okay. But I see your video is clipping pretty bad there. Oop. We'll get Jim back in a second, I'm sure. When Jim does get back, we're going to talk more about. There we go. Jim Jatras joined. Here we go.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, that's better already.
Is that better? Okay.
So, Jim, let's tie this back to your history, specifically within the government. Explain to the people again what exactly you did inside of the U.S. government for so many years, coming from both being a well, you just tell the people. I'll just say it in your own words instead of having me stumble through it.
Well, I guess the short answer is I never really had a plan. I mean, I never had, some people have like a career path, a goal or something. I never had any of those things. I just sort of did this seems like be the right thing to do at the time. So I went to undergrad. I majored in political science, even though Frankly, I don't know what that is. Frankly, I don't know if anybody knows what that is. But that's what I major in because I'm interested in politics. I'm majoring in political science, which shows you how not smart I was in those days. And then I graduated with that degree. And what else can you do except go to law school or grad school or drive a taxi cab? So I went to law school, even though I didn't want to be a lawyer. And then I took a multiple choice exam and ended up at the State Department. So I did that for 6.5 years and serving in Mexico at the U.S. consulate in Tijuana. And then, we've been through this before, so I won't go through the whole thing. But then at the Soviet desk of the State Department, some other positions there. And then was 17 years at the U.S. Senate in the leadership of the Republican Party in the U.S. Senate, mostly working on foreign policy topics, analyzing legislation, alerting people to upcoming amendments, all that kind of stuff. And then I was evil Washington lobbyist for several years. So and now I'm retired. So, but the Senate was my major period of my so-called career.
Right, and of course you've had relations with the State Department. So the question really comes down to back to this: I repeat this quite often because it's one of the things you said early on in the shows and in your book that really hit me because it made a lot of things make sense. Was that the American policy really wasn't anti-communist; it was anti-Russian from your time there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that made a lot more sense to me because obviously since then, America has now been flirting with, or has been in some way, shape, or form and indoctrinated with a lot of policies that we would say are definitely Marxist or communist or something like that, either from education or otherwise. Maybe Yuri Bezmenov was right. This infiltration happened somewhere in the 1970s or 60s, and it's just been working its way through. Putin has even come out and said things like, look, we've been where you are, and you might want to sort that out because you won't like what happens next. So I guess, Jim, and just also you put out a tweet that got a little bit of clapback, I guess, about Nixon being one of the greatest statesmen, or one of the last great statesmen. You came in during the Carter administration, if I'm correct. So it's sort of the tail end of Nixon and beginning of the Reagan as well.
No, tail end of Carter, yeah.
Tail end of Carter. Okay, so in the beginning of Reagan, and I think with Reagan as well, you can say we can criticize all his policies, and there's a lot of his policies that are good for criticism, but he did give that air of statesmanship. And I don't think we've had a statesman like Nixon or Reagan since. Period. I can't. No, I know there's been other people who've been exalted, but
By the way, just having mentioned that, I have something I have to show you.
Is it more hats? Proof that we don't schedule or script any of these things, folks. You're getting this feed live and raw. Please help support the show any way you can. Send us a super chat, send us some subscriptions, or send us some money over on Streamlabs. It always helps. Pay the bills, keep the lights on, literally. Oh, here we go. The peanut farmer himself. Here we go. Good old Jimmy.
You know what this is?
No. It's a picture.
This is the official presidential portrait from the United States Consulate General in Tijuana, Mexico, which was given to me at my going away party coming back to Washington in January of 1981 as a token of my victory as a Reagan supporter over Jimmy. And normally they would have just put the new presidential icon in here, but they didn't still take the thing with me. So this is purloined government property.
Brilliant.
Anyway, I couldn't resist.
Fair enough.
Because people ask me, why do you have a picture of Jimmy Carter? And I said, well, it's a victory token.
To this day, Jim can't eat peanuts without a little bit of like her.
Anyway, where were we? Nixon, right?
Yeah, it was
or Reagan.
Where do you want to take it from? Like the lack of statesmanship, or statesmanship, I should say, present in the White House. from the inside out, Jim, because it's, I guess from my perspective, the relations between Russia and America specifically have changed over the years, officially, right, formally,
Right.
from the Brezhnev years to the Gorbachev years, and then of course post Soviet. But I guess internally, I don't think it has really, because I mean, I'm just very confused as to where the relationships between Russia and America have been, and do they change? Have they always been like this? What's the internal mindset from your perspective, or whatever you can glean from your time inside the beast? Like, I don't know where you want to take it, but
well, I don't know how far back you want to go. Russian support for the Union during the Civil War, all the rest of it. I mean, or Roosevelt's recognition of the Soviets in 1933, rather belatedly. World War II. I mean, I think the long and the short of it is that there's been a kind of a. Remember back in the latter stages of the Cold War, people used to talk about conversions, that somehow détente would lead to our becoming more like a socialist system, and they would become less strict and more freer in some ways, and the two systems would converge somehow. To a certain extent, that was happening. I mean, back when I was a kid, back in the 50s and 60s, we used to hear about godless communism, right? I mean, there was a very strong sense in some sectors of America that this was all about values, that we were, free people, believed in God. That's why the Knights of Columbus put under God in the Pledge of Allegiance back in the 1950s, and that it really was about ideology. I don't think that was ever true at the ruling levels of the American government, however. I think even back then, you had people who thought of themselves as more sophisticated than the ordinary rubes, and that for them, the clash with the Soviet Union was not about communism or ideology at all. It was about turf war between two groups of powers that shared roughly similar values: increasingly godless, statist, materialistic, and so forth. Now, underlying that, though, I think there was still a great deal of anti-Russian sentiment of a sort that's been built up over many centuries for several different reasons. I mean, all going back in some ways all the way back to the Great Schism of the 11th century. I think that at least in the late Soviet period, there was a sense that since the Soviet system was coming apart at the seams, that Russia itself would be coming apart, and we could get it under our control, as we seem to have done in the 1990s, when basically Russia became a client state of the United States under Yeltsin. In ways that I don't think anybody could quite have anticipated, that dominance fell apart in the early 2000s under Putin, and I think that was despite Putin's own inclinations. I remember, let's remember that early on, especially after 9/11 and all the rest of it, he was really big on being our buddy. He wanted to join NATO. He wanted to be part of the club. They were in the G8. I mean, at least as far as his inclinations go, they wanted to join, if you will, the same godless materialist system that had been dominating the West for decades, and they didn't seem to have any problem with it. Now, does that mean that, like Stalin, he's taking refuge in nationalism or even in orthodoxy because, well, that's the society he leads, and that's what you need to do to sort of maintain that society? I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's genuine with him, or maybe it's something that became genuine with him over the course of time. I'm not in a position to say. I'm not a mind reader. But I think what we've got now is the policy in the West is all shorn from of this, phony stuff about, freedom versus communism. And even that it's a turf war, but more like Rutenia delenda est, that this is a civilization and a state that is an impediment to the global domination of whatever we want to call our system nowadays, democracy, human rights, and all that nonsense, or the Epstein gang, whoever they are. and that Russia needs to be taken down. And I don't think that's changed at all. I don't think it's changed under Trump. Under Reagan, at least you had somebody who seemed to have a genuine horror of the prospect of a nuclear exchange and wanted to do anything and everything possible to avoid it. Whereas Trump seems to have almost this cavalier attitude of I'll make all sorts of threats, and if they take me seriously, even a little bit, that's a good thing, because that way I'm going to pound them in a position to accept whatever deal I want to lay in front of them. I think I don't think people really appreciate how dangerous the path that we're pursuing right now is.
Well, it's also interesting during the Reagan years, because you had Margaret Thatcher in there as well. And the classic story is that Margaret Thatcher was the one who brokered a lot of the peace deals, or let's say early negotiations and conversations between Reagan and Gorbachev. That led to, basically the Berlin Wall collapsing, being torn down, and all the rest of it. Reagan's great big speech, Mr. Gorbachev, you tear down that wall, wouldn't have happened without Maggie Thatcher. And I think people sleep on that aspect of it as well. We often now see, and this is a Tom Luongo point, but I think there are other people are waking up to as well, that UK is not always our friends. And I'm saying this in a global sense, even here as a Canadian Australian. Hi, how you doing? direct Commonwealth country. They're not exactly our friends. They're pursuing their own pathways, and City of London and all those other conversations can happen. But at least for a really brief period of time there, it did seem like UK was on team humanity, if we can say that that normalization between the US and Russia at that time, because being the two big nuclear powers, was really important. Like peacifying that situation and making sure that Russian arms aren't just floating around in places like Ukraine. I'm always, just as a side quest, I always chuckled myself when people go, "Oh, Ukraine should never give up those nuclear arms." It's like, are you mad? Like, if they weren't forced to give up those arms, first of all, they weren't their arms to begin with, but if they had held on to it, I guarantee you a lot of people would have nuclear arms, would have nuclear missiles today. Like tons of different countries would have nuclear missiles today, because they would just sold them on the black market. Like,
but actually, I wonder what Matt Ehret thinks about Maggie Thatcher and all of that, because his opinion would carry some weight with me. I don't know. I maybe I'm naive, but maybe this is an example where the personal factor in history actually does make a difference. That Britain, of course, maintains whatever clout it has in international affairs by being sort of the tail that wags the American dog, and that they sort of lead the dumb Yanks around by the nose. Because after all, we may have the money bags, but they have all the brains, right? At least they think they do. So maybe she felt, based on personal relationships with Reagan and Gorbachev, which she seemed to genuinely have, and also what seemed to be a genuine relationship between Reagan and Gorbachev, that they could put this thing to bed. And the Soviets at the time, I think, were genuine in their expectation that saying, "Phew, glad that's all over, and we can have some kind of a normal relationship with the rest of the world and become a normal country," even though they went through that very, very bad time in the 1990s. I think probably if Reagan, Reagan clones could have been perpetuated into the next few administrations, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe the assurances that we had given the Soviet Union in 1991 actually would have been honored through the 1990s and the early 2000s, instead of being violated the way they were. I don't really know the answer to that.
Well, let's pursue that a little bit, because of course George Bush Sr. is kind of seen as like the third term of Reagan in many ways, depending on which narratives you want to go with. That second term Reagan, after the assassination attempt on Reagan, apparently he started having problems. Whatever, right? Basically, the speculation is that George Bush, who was a vice president at that time, ex-CIA chief as well, and many links to the deep state and the Carlyle Group, by the way, basically takes over and is running the administration for the most part of Reagan's second term, and then of course wins into the third term. What gets disrupted after George Bush is the rise of the Clintons, and not just Bill Clinton in the White House, which is a whole topic of discussion, but what Clinton ends up doing to Congress, to the Congress and the Senate. Like, a lot of people want to blame Obama for a lot of things. Like the Clintons, the seismic effect of the Clintons, which I don't think it was just them. I can think it's the people behind them as well, changed the entire face of American politics in 8 years, essentially. Any thoughts on that? Because I think that's really where we see a souring of relations, not just with Russia and America, but I mean, pick your country, really, because it's a brand new kind of domestic international policy.
Where something I keep coming back to, we cannot overstate the impact on the global system, certainly European security, and certainly our relationship with Russia over what happened in Yugoslavia in the 1990s. And that was Clinton. I mean, you got a little inkling of that in the closing days of the Bush administration, Bush senior administration, over some warnings that were issued over Kosovo. But what really pushed the button then in 1991 is the breakup of. Well, let me wait. I'm getting ahead of myself here, because that did happen under Bush Senior, because Clinton got elected in 1992, right? And he didn't take office until January of 93. So this really did start happening under Bush, where we dug ourselves into the quagmire in Yugoslavia, and really then that's when things really started to unravel. But I think that it really accelerated with a couple of things. The first expansion of NATO that took place under Clinton, and then what I think really sealed the deal was the bombing of Serbia in 1999. Look, even with the first expansion of NATO, I think, which was a violation of the assurances we'd given in Moscow when we admitted Poland, Czechia, and Hungary into NATO. Even then, the Russians didn't really seem to become alarmed about it. They said, "Wait a minute, that's not what we agreed on," but that's still pretty far away from their borders and from the borders of the former Soviet Union. Although Hungary does have a border with Ukraine. But I think was the bombing of Yugoslavia that they finally said, "Okay, wait a minute now. This is something entirely different. This is not what we agreed to when we decided to pull out of Europe."
What do you think of this too? Because I mean, if you look at, let's say, Poland, Hungary, even Romania to a certain degree, those were later day Soviet states. I mean, Poland post World War II, but I mean, that gets difficult. We won't get into the whole minutia of that. But even if I was, let's say, Russia, and looking at the situation, like, okay, I understand, right? Like Poland, Hungary, Romania, maybe a few other places have a long-standing grudge. They have a reasonable grudge. Even Lithuania and Estonia have a reasonable grudge against Russia, and maybe looking for some protection because, like, they're like, hey, we're not going to trust you now because of what you pulled off in our countries. When you get to something like Serbia, though, because Serbia is a long-term friend and ally of Russia, and in many ways has always been within the Russian sphere of influence for, I mean, how many hundreds of years. Then that starts getting into a different territory. Even the same with Croatia. Croatia is a weird
well, there was a German client. I mean, that's one thing you saw again, a kind of a microcosm in Yugoslavia, where on the basis of religion, the world looked at Serbs as little Russians, the Croats as little Germans, and the Bosnian Muslims as little Turks. Even though they were the same ethnicity, they belonged to three different civilizational spheres based on, and basically the same people spoke the same language. They belonged to different civilizational spheres and had different what they call kinship, kin country attitudes toward the outside world. Where as soon as the fighting started in Yugoslavia, the Turks are saying, "Oh, the Muslims, those are our guys," and the Germans are saying, "Oh, the Croats, those are our guys," and the Russians are saying, "Oh, the Serbs, those are our guys." And so that that got the rest of the world, as let's say interested spectators and then participants in what happened after that. And then, of course, then for reasons that are very complex. I don't know if we want to go into. The United States decide to jump in with both feet as the Muslim champion in the Balkans, which is a lot counterintuitive to a lot of people.
Conan, the librarian here, says in the chat, going back to the Clinton's discussion, Hillary didn't talk to him, Bill, for 8 months after Lewinsky broke her silence and told him to bomb Serbia. That's the story, which is an interesting story.
Didn't talk to Bill Clinton.
Yeah, didn't talk to Bill for Hillary didn't talk to Bill Clinton for 8 months after the Lewinsky story broke. And then apparently she broke her silence and told Bill to bomb Serbia. That's the story.
Who told Bill bomb Serbia? Hillary. Or, I can't imagine Lewinsky did.
No, Hillary.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Lewinsky's mouth was full. She couldn't tell him anything.
I was going to avoid saying that, but
she was
anyway,
she was at the laundromat.
That one. Yeah,
I'll fill the thing in.
The blueprint. I know. Okay, there you go.
I'll be the guy. Don't worry.
I got a minute. Yeah, that's right. I don't get no respect.
Let's pin that. Let's walk through a history of Yugoslavia. We've talked a bit about Yugoslavia on the show before, because I mean, obviously you've also known quite a bit about Serbia and have relations with them as well. But I think maybe we can do a full show about Yugoslavia in the future. And maybe I'll reach out to Thomas777 and see if he'll grace us as well, because I think that'll be a very interesting conversation. Put you two in the same room together. But and Matthew Aird as well. I'm still reading some of the books he sent over, but I think a secondary conversation with Matt sometime in August is due.
Yeah, and his thoughts on Maggie Thatcher would be interesting.
Exactly. And also we'll have, we're putting this together. I haven't got an exact date, but it looks like we might have a Whiteford gracing us in August as well. So keep an eyes. I won't say too much until everything's confirmed and all the rest of it, because I don't like doing that. But we'll have more and more guests coming on in August. Jim, we'll wrap it up. Any last thoughts? We can do a TLDR on the Trump situation. I guess what are your, if we're going to make any kind of predictions, maybe predictions the wrong word, I don't know. where do you think, what should we be prepared for? Right. I mean, yeah, where do you honestly think we're going to be in 50 days? Maybe that's the better question. Any further towards peace, a negotiation, a ceasefire?
No. I think on Ukraine, we probably will not be much of anywhere different than we are today. In other words, I think Trump is, as he paints himself into more corners and he leaves himself with less and less room for maneuver. Oh, he'll be entertaining. He'll lash out. He'll say colorful things. But his ability to actually be taken seriously or to affect things will be less and less. Mm-hmm. I think it's most likely that obviously there will not be a ceasefire, and that something like the big beautiful bill from hell will sanctions bill will be enacted, or even if it's not, he uses what authorities he has, and he'll do something. He'll slap some more sanctions on Russia. He'll send some more weapons we don't have to the Ukrainians. He'll maybe slap some sanctions on Lula in Brazil, because he doesn't like him anyway, because he's prosecuting his friend Bolsonaro. And so he'll do something, but I think he'll try to settle for a half a loaf on most of these fronts, because he realizes that doing nothing is not an option, because his credibility will be down the toilet even more than it already is. Right. Or if he does something that could be counterproductive, so he'll do something. He'll basically engage in tokenism. He'll engage in sort of like, okay, that I slapped a sanction on them. That'll show them. He'll do what he did to the Iranians. He bombs, something where nothing is, and says problem solved, mission accomplished. It's all smoke and mirrors, and it's all PR. But that only lasts so long. I mean, reality is going to catch up with you at some point.
Well, I think the bigger
problem is when things between Israel and Iran heat up again. And frankly, I think that's what the 50 days is time for. Why 50? Why not 30 or 60 or 90? Why 50? There's something else on his radar screen. Maybe it's something in the bond market. Maybe it's something in the financial world. Maybe it's something else that he's got his eye on, or somebody told him, Mr. President, you've got to wrap this up before X happens. And so they picked a really weird number or maybe it's some kind of deception, like his 2 weeks, I'll make a decision on Iran, and then 2 days later he bombs them.
Or maybe he just likes the number 50.
No, nobody likes 50. Nobody likes 50.
I know I'm turning 50
What's
soon.
50?
No one likes this number. It's a horrible number. Why would you?
No, nobody likes that number. No,
it's an uncomfortable number. Jim, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, my friend. I tried to warn you. By James George Jatras, of course, available on Amazon, Kindle, all your fine booksellers. I saw someone in the chat mention they had already picked up a copy, so go pick up your copy today.
Yes, and if they do, by the way, read the preface first. Read the preface first.
Yeah, and it goes right into Solzhenitsyn and the first chapter. After we wrap up here, folks, if you go over to kick.com, look for MIRONCHUCK now. I'm going to be playing a video game. I haven't decided which one, but I'll be playing that and listening to Pete Quinones and Dr. Matthew Raphael Johnson read from Solzhenitsyn's 200 Years Together. They have a full reading list.
Oh my!
It's up to over 40 episodes. So I'll be playing that and listening to that and playing something and doing commentary and all that stuff. So if you want to join in on that, go over to kick.com. It's going to be a Kick exclusive. So we can do long streams over there. And there's no more ads. There's no ads. There's no buffering. There's no all the YouTube shenanigans and stuff. So go over to kick.com. Sign up over there. And I will see you there later on this evening. Thank you so much, Jim. We'll be back next week.
One last thing.
Sure.
You mentioned Solzhenitsyn and the liberals, that essay there. That actually started out as a memo inside the State Department about some of our attitude toward Russia, and it sort of encapsulates the thing we were talking about earlier, that these people had nothing but red assumptions about Russia. What if the whites had won? What a disaster that would have been. I mean, it's really amazing how much a quasi-commie attitude toward Russia was prevalent at the State Department in those days. It was the difference between Stalinism and Bukharinism, basically, in outlook. That's quite remarkable. Anyway, that article was from 1985, so that's right back in the heart of the era we're talking about. And also, people don't forget SouthernOrthodox.org, the Ludwell Conference.
I'll put a link in the description. Just remind me. I'll do that in a second.
Thank you.
So that way everyone can go over to Ludwell. Go over to where's this? Right, it's in Virginia. Go over to Virginia. Take some time off. Go to Virginia. Go to a nice conference. See Jim, Jay Dyer, and many others talk, and you can send them my love over in person. Give Jim a hug and say it's from Jason. So I am Jason MIRONCHUCK. And it's later than you think.